Time for some action. Hey guys, this is the FOF with the FOF guy once again with another interview episode. This time I interviewed Nick Inglis, and he talks about becoming a professor at a university and college level. So stay tuned guys, have yourself a great day.
Hey Nicholas, thanks very much for being on my show today. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Jamie.
Coming
nice
on my show, third time. Third time's a charm, right?
Yeah.
So just tell us, our viewers, about your educational background from like when you're
certainly
young right now.
Well, I started in preschool in the 80s, and then that proceeded to elementary school, where I graduated cum laude. And then we went to high school, which is where I met you. And then I went to basically university, and then took a degree in biology with significant coursework in English and history as well. And then I think I graduated around 2004. And then I did a 1 year of a master's degree in molecular biology and biochemistry at SFU. And then they upgraded me to a PhD student. So I didn't complete my master's degree. I just went into my PhD. And in 2009, I completed it. And then I did a year or so of postdoctoral work before becoming a university lecturer.
That sounds good.
Which is where I am now.
So how did you know you wanted to be a professor, or is it just something that kind of landed inside? Yeah, I can be a professor. Well, how exactly did it come along?
Well, I mean, in my case, my dad does the same job. So I saw that growing up, and I know that from watching him, who I admired, but at the same time, I also saw that there's a certain lifestyle and freedom that comes with jobs in academia. Yeah. And I like that. So for example, I don't really have to be in the office all that much, really like I'm accounted for like 16 hours a week kind of thing. But a lot of the work I can kind of do at home or sort of at my whims. And so there's a lot more freedom in my job. Yeah, and as you know, because we've known each other a long time, it's like I've got that kind of fear of going out sometimes, and this job sort of feeds that problem a little bit because I don't have to go out to do a lot of my work. I can do a lot of marking at home, for example. I can prepare my lectures at home. It's really just interacting with students and the occasional meeting that I have to. And of course, this is all being exacerbated further by COVID, because now I'm like, even at work, I'm spending 100% of my time like seated right here.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So you want to be a professor? How old were you when were you really young, or
probably
teenage years? Yeah, something like that.
I've never considered not being a prof. I will say, honestly, I've always been good at standing in front of a group and talking. I have a pretty good instinct for kind of explaining things to people.
Yep.
So like it just kind of fit. I've never really thought about doing anything else. And like I said, I got to observe it firsthand. And so I knew it kind of fit what I was looking for in life. I'll also point out here that you're talking about professors. That term is ambiguous. And kind of contentious. So depending on like sort of Kwantlen where I work at, we're actually termed instructors. Although I think there are people in the faculty, myself included, that would like to see that lingo change to reflect that we are professors, we're supervising research students and that sort of thing. But we're really considered to be university lecturers. There are professors in a very specific sense is really referring to people that are actively doing research.
Yeah. Well, some of them do at Kwantlen. Like one of my teachers, I worked under him, and he were actually doing research.
Yeah, and there are people at Kwantlen that do lots of research, and I've engaged in research at Kwantlen too, supervise research students in their like fourth year honors kind of thing.
Yeah.
But not everybody does it, and not everybody wants to, and not everybody signed up to be involved in that. So it's an ambiguous issue. I'm kind of in between, I guess I would say. Although my preference is probably to be called professor, but that's not how it's called. And lecturer sounds good to me too. I don't really, but it's important for your audience to know that there is that distinction. Like there's more than just professors out there. There's instructors, there's lab instructors, there's
PAs, something like that.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So how does university and high school prepare you to become a professor? I mean, what's the difference between, I mean, the high school, did they really prepare you to be a professor or anything like that? Or is it more just a college, university level deal or what?
To be honest with you, being an instructor or a lecturer in any level, I would imagine, that's probably the easiest thing to learn from your teachers in elementary school, high school, and even university, right? Because every time you go to school, think about like the best teacher you had in elementary school or high school or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you were to try to teach in the future at university, you would probably end up emulating that person's style.
Yeah.
So the more you go to school, the more you observe, even just passively osmosing teaching styles and pedagogical approaches from other people, even outside of your comfort zone. Yeah. Obviously, so I would say my job is one of the easiest ones to like learn how to teach, like learn how to do, because I've just
lectures all the time, right?
Yeah, because we've all gone to school. We've all gone to school, and then you go into university, and so you're doing like another 4 or 5 years of it. And so you're watching another 4 or 5 years of instructors. I know which teachers I hated. I know which teachers I loved. I know which stuff worked for me. I know which worked for my friends. I didn't need to be educated on education, to be honest with you. It just kind of was natural, and I just kind of, like I said, stole what worked for me, and that's what I implemented in my classroom.
Yeah. To be honest with you, and this is probably a lot of the viewers right now who are watching this, I don't even know exactly what I'm going to be doing totally exactly, but you know, I'm working towards maybe perhaps a master's one day, but you know, that's pretty encouraging, you know. Let me just turn on my phone. There we go.
We'll survive.
I forgot I
problem being live, my friend.
But so what did your journey look like to become a professor? Like, how did you do it exactly? Like, what were the steps you had to take to become a professor at a university level or college or university level?
Well, I mean, it's really just going to school. And like I said, it's one of the easiest things to transition into, because what are the teachers that are teaching you are literally teaching you how to do the job that you're trying to get into. Yeah. So it's kind of an obvious path. Now, depending on the field, you may need a master's degree to teach. Depending on some fields, it's now PhD to teach at the university. Yeah, it's becoming more competitive. And I would say that even if there's no sort of exclusion of people with master's degrees from lectureship positions, the job market is very competitive, and there's going to be 50 PhDs applying for the job, and so it's going to be challenging. So in my case, I got my PhD. I was in the middle of sort of a postdoc at the end of my PhD. And all the time, there are teaching positions that pop up. They're called sessional instructor positions.
Yeah, okay.
You probably heard of that.
What exactly is that? Just so for viewers, so they just...
Sessional instructor position is like kind of when you're starting out teaching, before you have a regular position, you have a series of like gigs where you get one course and they don't have any commitment to you. You don't get paid as much as the regular instructors.
But you get the experience.
But you get the experience. So like my first sessional gig was at SFU. I taught a 500 student cell biology course, second year cell biology course at SFU. And the only reason I got it is because they needed someone at the last second. And I was interested in teaching. So I'm like, okay, I'm a cell biologist, I can do this. And so there's only 2 people that applied, and I got in for whatever reason.
Maybe I should have applied. Hey, this is a cell. It has a wall. It has stuff inside it.
Yeah, something like that. I think a little bit more complicated though. Yeah. It's just like But that was an interesting experience. And then I did sessional work at the University of the Fraser Valley as well. Very different situation there, because they only have 30 students per class, or 20 or something like that.
That's a lot like Kwantlen. Kwantlen may have
it's very much like Kwantlen.
More students, but very similar kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just became a university as well. I'll note that they changed the name of their instructors to professor as well.
Okay.
Anyway, so UFE was great. I worked there for a couple of years. I got to teach all sorts of different classes from different levels. Generally, the sessional work takes you before you can get. There's only so many regular faculty positions that you can get. It's a challenging job to get into at first, and you need to accrue a lot of sessional hours. I see something like 5 years sometimes of sort of running that sessional treadmill, where again you don't have any sort of job security necessarily.
Yeah.
And you kind of go term to term. There always seems to be work available, but not enough to guarantee future work.
Yeah.
So in my case, what I ended up doing instead of going on that sessional treadmill for 5 years is I took a regular job way up north. So I went up to Quesnel, the College of New Caledonia, and took basically an instructor position there, which was regular full-time work.
So not many people want to go up there, is that the deal? Or not that I'm making fun of them or anything, but nobody really want to go up there. They don't want to move all the way out there because they like it where they live. And
well, most people prefer the city. I mean, it's a lifestyle out there that's a little different, and there's just not as many people there. I like to shop at Best Buy. There's not a Best Buy within like 3 hours of the city. So that was making me go crazy. But you're kind of on your own. In that situation, it was really neat though. I only had like 5 to 10 students a class. And it was a really so I've had like that.
Students? Are you serious?
In some cases less, yeah. And I just sit there chatting with these students. It was much more informal. I still know them and talk to them. I've made really good friends from my student population there. In fact, a lot of the learners are older up north. I have friends, close friends that I taught that are now nurses.
Stuff like that. Okay, cool. So what about after that? What happened after that?
Again, no disrespect to the Quesnel, but I didn't feel comfortable there. And so after a few years, I had accrued enough experience that I applied for a job at Kwantlen that I was actually able to get.
And then here you are.
Right. And again, I know Kwantlen because that's where my dad worked. So I kind of knew what I wanted. I have friends that live around there. I kind of, I bought a house that was really close to the university, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah. I made a mistake in this thing. It says, how do you become a God professor instead of a good professor? I just
I'll take it. I thought it was a compliment.
How do you actually become a good professor? Like, I know that you're probably a hot tamale right now, and rate my professor. I don't know if you checked it out lately, but I checked it out years ago, and you're like one of those hot tamales, right? Kind of deal with hot chili pepper or whatever it is.
Well, that implies sexiness. I'm not sure that I have that qualification anymore.
No. It actually refers to somebody who's really good.
Oh, okay.
They get like a chili or a hot tamale or whatever it may be because they're really good. But what does it take them a really good professor and to make it really interesting for your students? Because that's a tough thing to do. It's not easy. I mean, just because it's a PhD doesn't necessarily mean you can actually make it interesting for the not customer, well, kind of in a way customer, but for the student. I mean, do you have to be in tune with them? Do you have to make them engage them more? Or because some teachers are like, yeah, just do this work and we'll finish it off. We'll just talk about blah blah blah. We'll get it done. You'll get marked and that's it. Or then there's a teacher who's more engaged in when he or she's teaching. And they go, well, I'm gonna spend more of an effort to make it interesting for the students to get them in there. What do you think? How do you become a good professor?
Well, the question implies that I am. I don't know if I am or not, but I will say that I just have always done what I'm comfortable with, and B, what I've seen from good instructors that I've had in my past.
For example, so you have exactly. Well,
I know exactly. So, in my opinion, and I'm not a creative lecturer. I don't play games in class. I don't have rigid online activities and big discussions. The reality is, in a cell biology class, for example, if I wanted to talk about my PhD topic, which is intraflagellar transport, could you have a discussion with me about that?
Not me.
Most people couldn't.
I mean, I don't even know
So,
what the hell you. I don't know what the heck they're talking about actually.
exactly right. So, but let's flip this around and let's say that my PhD was on um, the Americans dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II.
You could talk about that because
Both of us could talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm trying to demonstrate there is that some disciplines, it's easier to be creative in that teaching sense than it is in others, because I have to be, like the word is didactic. I have to be much more instructional in a science class, outside of a couple disciplines of biology, like genetics, for example, which can have a lot of extensive problem solving. Something like cell biology or molecular biology, for example, you really just have to spend 2 years memorizing a lot of stuff. And there's not much ability for you and I to have discussion about that.
Because that's why third and fourth year are pretty interesting, because then you start reading the peer-reviewed journals and all that stuff, and then you start going, okay, I'm going to do my own experiment, which I've done about maybe 3 or 4 experiments, or 5, or prepared for 1 or 2 of them or something like that. But I think, in my opinion, though, this is my opinion, of course, they should start looking at peer-reviewed journals in high school. That's my opinion, and start kind of not necessarily marking them totally on what they do, but just getting them into that. In my opinion, they should. I know it's really difficult, some of the language in those ones, but pick the easier ones, you know what I mean, kind of deal. And but of course you're just in high school, and half the high school students don't really want to be there, you know what I mean, and that kind of stuff. So what do you think about that?
Well, you could argue that we're currently in the midst of a crisis of information. It's people don't have seemingly the skills to assess what they're looking at, whether it's true or not, or whether it's based on reality or not. And so I think I understand what you're saying. I do think that the linguistic hurdle that you mentioned is pretty challenging one to overcome. But like in that line, I could give you 3 websites that have information on them. And then I could ask you, explain to me which one do you trust the most? Like that's the sort of thing that I think they could be doing at elementary and high school levels.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I remember a history class with Mr. Colpin back at Fluent Park there. I named
represent Fleetwood Dragons.
But he'd be like, hey, look at the source of who's saying this, and are they reliable? Is it secondhand? And that's a very important thing. So I think that I found that history really got you into that kind of stuff. And it happens every day with me. I hear people showing videos that say, oh, vaccinations are bad and stuff, and then they got some guy with a PhD talking about it. Well, I'm thinking, I don't know about this, is it really true? Is it not? I don't know, right? But this is kind of I know it didn't really mean to debate or anything today or anything like that, but I think it's very important to look into that stuff and be not passive, but kind of an assertive viewer of everything, you know what I mean? And I think that's pretty important stuff, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, so what would you tell the students right now, and some are probably listening right now, what would you tell them if they want to become a professor? What would you say to them to say, hey, blah, 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 do this, do that, or just do what you want to do? Or what would you say to that? Because maybe they're thinking about it and they just want something to drive them over the edge to do it. But what would you say to them?
Get as much teaching experience as you can as quick as possible from an employment standpoint. I mean, when you're even at higher ends of undergraduate, you can start TAing at universities, for example. Yeah. So that's teaching experience. Mm-hmm. In my case, I had an instructor, the prof that I worked with, he was teaching classes, and I said, hey, do you mind if I could guest lecture a couple of your classes? And then bam, I've got that on my resume. You could, there's teaching seminars that are being offered at every university. Kwantlen has a learning center that gives education on every month they have a seminar showing you how to interact with students better, and appreciating, we just had this massive transition to online that kind of happened at a snap of a finger. They were in there to sort of give us that support. So there's the opportunities to sort of build up your resume with little things like that, so that when you get to that that sessional job, that first one sessional job that becomes available, you can say, well, I've got a little bit more than everybody else in the spot because I did the TAing for a few years. I always made sure to tutor students whenever they needed help. I trained researchers. So everything is from an educational spin. But really, the what you need to do is what everybody has to do is you have to get a degree in your field, and guide your way to teaching. But make sure that you're not just doing it because you want to have a job like this. You should. I see a number of people that take this job that really seem to hate students. And I don't understand why you would do that.
Hold on. Sorry, it's just my roommate knocking on the door.
Okay.
Anyways, go ahead.
Well, that's all I was gonna say. I see some of my colleagues are miserable.
Oh, really? That's a shame.
Well,
I remember tutoring at Kwantlen when I used to tutor high school math students to. That's my phone. Anyways, I forgot to turn my phone off. Did you turn your phone off, young man?
I did, actually.
All right.
I have meetings like this all the time.
They turn off their cell phone.
Well, yeah, I mean, it used to happen when I was teaching online at the start. Of course, I didn't turn off my cell phone because I didn't think about it. But the first time it happened when I was 30 minutes into recording a lecture and I had to redo the whole lecture, of course, I then turn off the cell phone all the time.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so just and to go back to what I was saying about Kwantlen is I used to tutor mathematics to not high school students but adults in the education program, and I learned from that. I learned how to teach. I learned how to teach mathematics to students who may not have understood it in the first place. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And I think I'm going to get a master's one day, but not right away. I think I'm going to get some, how about experience in the labs? Does that help you to become a teacher? Experience in labs, like working with it under a teacher and stuff like that, it helps you, right?
It helps you in the sense that it will make you get a graduate degree faster, and you need the graduate degree in order to get the job. So yeah, I mean, but again, you can take it within that graduate program. You can do things that will improve your chances of success, right? So like I had students that were like undergrad students when I was a master's and PhD student that I was training like actively. And like one of them runs a lab somewhere now, and another one is a medical doctor in New York. Like I trained these people. I still keep in touch with them, but they were the first line on my resume when I was applying for teaching jobs. Like I trained 2 people to become researchers, and I learned a ton of lab sort of teaching skills that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, I think that's pretty much it, Nicholas. Thank you very much for having me, being on my show, my friend. I appreciate that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this, and it'll be out with the world. Thanks,
Perfect.
Nick.
My pleasure.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that last interview. If you want to become a teacher, at least to know what kind of obstacles will be in your way and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, there may be other ways to become a teacher or professor. So stay tuned, guys, for the next video. All right, peace.